Picture this. You're an average American, and one day at church, your pastor tells you that God is commanding America to support Israel unconditionally. But wait, aren't church and state supposed to be separate? Oh, but then you find out your congressman just voted to send billions of dollars overseas, while your own town has bridges falling apart and people literally living on the street. And when you ask why, when you just ask the question, you get called anti-Semitic. That's exactly what's happening to the most loyal voices in MAGA right now. They're asking why Israel comes before Americans, and they're getting destroyed for it. Trump unendorsed Marjorie Taylor Greene, the woman who defended him through impeachments, through January 6th, through everything. She called what's happening in Gaza a genocide. He dropped her. Candace Owens questioned support for Israel. Well, she got fired. Tucker Carlson said maybe we shouldn't send billions to a country of 9 million people while Americans are struggling. He got canceled. These are the voices that built MAGA, and they're being expelled for asking one question. Why are we unconditionally supporting Israel? And then there's you, the person who thought you were voting for America first. Do you want to know how deep this really goes? Bibi Netanyahu addressed Congress and got 58 standing ovations. By the way, that's more than any American president in history. So to put this very simply, your representatives gave this foreign leader 58 standing ovations. And this is tearing the right apart. One side says it's biblical, the other side says we were betrayed. And by the end of this video, you're going to truly understand how Israel and its influence is tearing the right apart. Okay, so let's start with what nobody can deny. Israel has unprecedented influence over American politics.
America and Israel must stand together.
Look, I told you that Netanyahu had 58 standing ovations from both Democrats and Republicans, but what I didn't tell you is the absolutely insane thing he said.
And if Israel's hands are tied, America is next.
And listen to how he frames it. America's survival depends on Israel. Let that sink in, okay? A country of 9 million people telling a country of 350 million with an entire ocean between us that we need them to survive. And here's what else I need you to see. Politicians from both parties making pilgrimages to the Western Wall in Jerusalem. They're touching the wall, praying, performing rituals for a foreign nation.
Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel. That's what Scripture tells us to do. It's a matter of faith for us and a commitment that we have.
Like, what? Making policy decisions that previous administrations avoided for decades because they knew how explosive they'd be. Moving our embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and we're not just talking about symbolic gestures. Israel is the #1 recipient of US foreign aid by a massive margin, okay? Massive. And number 2? Well, that's Egypt, which we only fund because of our commitment to Israel. Since Israel became a state in 1948, we've sent them over $300 billion. And in just the last 2 years alone, $30 billion. To put that in perspective, $300 billion could rebuild every structurally deficient bridge in America. It could fund healthcare for Americans, the same healthcare Israel already has, courtesy of us. But instead, we sent it to a foreign country. Yeah, but it's not just the money, no. Laws are being passed right now that criminalize criticism of the Israeli government under the guise of combating anti-Semitism. Think about that. Laws that make it illegal to criticize a foreign government. This is real, this is documented, this isn't conspiracy theory. This is American foreign policy. But here's the thing, Democrats support it, establishment Republicans support it, so there's basically a total bipartisan consensus of unwavering support for Israel. So why is MAGA so upset? And listen, if you're just now realizing how deep this influence goes, hit subscribe because we're about to go even deeper. Okay, so if everyone in Washington agrees on this, why is this issue, of all issues, the one that's ripping MAGA apart? Well, because MAGA was different. Here's what people need to understand about the whole MAGA movement, okay? It brought together this wild coalition of people who normally wouldn't agree on anything at all. Truly. You know, you had libertarians, independents, centrists, constitutional conservatives, even former Bernie supporters. People from all over the political spectrum who were just fed up with the establishment. And here's the critical part. It brought together Zionists and non-Zionists. These people didn't agree on religion, they didn't agree on theology, They didn't even all agree on social issues, but they united around a few core things, right? You know, like ending the forever wars, securing the border, making housing affordable, draining the swamp, please, and maybe most importantly, putting America first. That was the deal. America first. Not Israel first. No, not any other country first. America first. But now, that coalition is fracturing because one group within MAGA, the Zionists, believes that supporting Israel isn't just good policy, it's not optional. It's a biblical mandate from God himself, actually. And everyone else in the coalition is going, wait, hold on, that is not what we signed up for. Here's the question we need to answer. What even is Zionism, and why do some Christians seem to care about it more than Jewish people do? Okay, quick history lesson. I'm gonna do my best with this. So Zionism is, the belief that Jewish people should have their own state. Well, it wasn't born from the Bible. It was born from politics. In the late 1800s, a guy named Theodor Herzl watched anti-Semitism explode across Europe, and he said, Jews need their own state. In 1897, he organized the first Zionist Congress. And problem, the place he picked, Palestine, already had 600,000 people living there. Then, in 1917, Britain made a promise. The Balfour Declaration. It was a letter to Lord Rothschild, you might have heard of that family before, saying Britain would support a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Now, here's the wild part, okay? The guy who wrote it, Arthur Balfour, the same Arthur Balfour who 12 years earlier had passed Britain's Aliens Act, specifically to keep Jewish refugees out of Britain. So Balfour didn't want Jews in Britain, but he was happy to promise them someone else's land. In Palestine, where other people already lived. Oh, and Britain had already promised that same land to the Arabs and the French. Fast forward to 1948, Israel is declared a state. About 750,000 Palestinians are expelled, and the justification? Jewish people needed safety after the Holocaust, but Palestinians, who had nothing to do with the European genocide, they paid the price. So here's what matters. This wasn't a biblical mandate. This was political maneuvering by European powers. But that's political Zionism, and that's not even what's tearing MAGA apart, because there's actually another kind of Zionism, and this one is way, way more influential in American politics. Brace yourself, because this could be hard for you to hear. It might touch on something deeply personal. Your faith, your pastor, your church, and I promise you I am not here to attack your faith, I'm really not. But I'm asking you to listen with an open mind because you deserve to know the full story. So, what if I told you that a lot of what American evangelicals believe about Israel and end times prophecy was essentially inserted into Christianity through one book? In 1909, a guy named Cyrus Scofield published something called the Scofield Reference Bible. It was the King James Bible, but with Scofield's own commentary notes printed right alongside the actual scripture. And these notes taught something called dispensationalism, which is this idea that God has different plans for Jews versus Christians, and that the modern state of Israel plays a critical role in end times prophecy. Here's what Scofield wrote about Genesis 12:3, which is, I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curseth thee. His note said, has invariably fared ill with the people who have persecuted the Jew, well with those who have protected him. The future will still more remarkably prove this principle. Genesis 12:3 is about God's promise to Abraham, but Scofield applied it to how modern nations should treat the Jewish people, and by extension, the modern state of Israel, which didn't even exist yet in 1909. The Scofield Bible was published by Oxford University Press, and it was heavily marketed. It became the standard reference Bible in seminaries and churches across America, especially in the massive Southern Baptist Convention. It sold millions of copies. But here's where it gets even more interesting. After Scofield died, Oxford University Press kept revising his notes. In 1984, they published the new Scofield Study Bible and added this line: for a nation to commit the sin of anti-Semitism brings inevitable judgment. They intensified the interpretation. They made it stronger. And then modern Christian Zionist leaders like John Hagee, who's the founder of Christians United for Israel, well, they took it even further, okay? Hagee says, the man or nation that lifts a voice or a hand against Israel invites the wrath of God. Do you see the progression? Scofield started it, Oxford University Press amplified it after his death, and now megachurch pastors are preaching it as absolute biblical truth. Entire generations of Americans grew up believing these interpretations were basically as authoritative as scripture itself, as demonstrated by the infamous Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson interview.
Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
well, hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
we are commanded to support Israel.
And there's evidence this wasn't organic. Scofield had close relationships with wealthy financiers, specifically a Wall Street lawyer named Samuel Untermyer, who was a passionate Zionist. Some historians suggest Untermyer helped fund and promote Scofield's career, including his trips to Europe, where he connected with Oxford University Press. Whether that's true or not, the result is undeniable. Okay, American evangelical Christianity was fundamentally reshaped to support the idea that blessing Israel, meaning the modern political state, is a biblical mandate. And here's the uncomfortable part. A lot of theologians, including conservative Bible-believing scholars, call dispensationalism heresy. They say it's a complete distortion of what Scripture actually teaches, but it's running rampant through megachurches in America.
It's the first time in history the state of Israel has officially partnered with 1,000 strategic pastors to commission them as ambassadors to combat anti-Semitism and reach the youth of their generation.
Dr. Mike Evans says Israel's fight is not just on the battlefield.
Right now there's an ideological war that Israel's losing. So they need the evangelicals, they need the Zionists to fight an ideological war.
One of the goals of this gathering is to strengthen Christian support during a time of growing global anti-Semitism. They say the pulpit must speak louder than the propaganda.
Pastors are teaching it from the pulpit, Christians are being sent on free trips to Israel, funded by pro-Israel organizations, and church curricula are being shaped to promote this theology.
We're launching in 2026 a global program to reach 1 million pastors and 1 million churches globally to teach them a biblical worldview so they realize God's not canceling any promises to the Jewish people, and he's not canceling to the Christians either.
And church curricula are being shaped to promote this theology. And millions of evangelical Christians now believe that supporting the modern state of Israel, no matter what its government does, is non-negotiable. So, you've got tens of millions of American Christians supporting Israel, not out of concern for Jewish safety, but because they need Jews in Israel to fulfill their own religious narrative. Kind of convenient, huh? But wait, I thought we had separation of church and state in this country, right? Well, yet here we have what looks like foreign policy being preached as biblical mandate, influencing how millions of Americans vote and pressuring politicians to send billions of dollars overseas.
So it's just, I think, an extraordinary time for pastors to go to their pulpits and to speak with clarity and with boldness and to push back on the anti-Semitism, the bigotry that is being pushed toward Jewish people and toward the people of Israel.
And this is what's tearing MAGA apart. So now you can see it, clearly, right? MAGA has split into two camps. We've got America first, you know? We got into this movement to fix America, put American citizens first, pretty much. And then we have Israel first. Supporting Israel is a biblical mandate. Sending billions of dollars there is non-negotiable. If you question it, you're anti-Semitic. You're not really MAGA. You're not a real Christian. Hell, you're even a traitor. And you can literally watch this war playing out right now.
Name one good thing that Zionism has brought to my country.
Who would actually invoke God himself to justify a political alliance with a foreign country? And if you've already guessed Ted Cruz, you're absolutely right.
The public polling numbers of support for Israel among young Christians is plummeting. And they're being spread lies. They're being spread lies, isolationist lies, that we should withdraw from the world because nobody wants to hurt us. But they're also being spread theological lies. They are being taught replacement theology, which is a lie that the promises God made to Israel and the people of Israel are somehow no longer good. They are no longer valid, that when God made a promise, he didn't mean the promise he made. And instead, it is an argument that the Christian church has replaced Israel and the Jews are no longer God's chosen people, and all of the promises throughout the Bible are now a dead letter. The church needs to engage and say the Bible is not silent on Israel, the Bible is crystal clear on Israel, and in the church we will stand and fight.
Tucker Carlson, one of the biggest voices in conservative media, says things about Israel he never would have said 5 years ago.
It's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that.
You're not allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
Well, that's what they're doing.
I'll put up with a lot of stuff, but I think that's, and I've said this 100 times, let me say it again. I don't understand how any Christian leader in the United States can sit by and not say something about that. Israel is a tiny and inherently insignificant country, at least geopolitically, in that it has only 9 million people. It's about the size of New Jersey, famously, but it has a much smaller GDP. It just doesn't really matter. And yet, despite its objective insignificance, it is the focus of the conversation, but it's also the focus of the spending.
And Charlie Kirk hosted debates questioning whether we should keep funding Israel.
How many of you guys think when a lawmaker, and a man I respect like Ted Cruz, uses the Bible to justify aid to Israel, doesn't even know the verse, do you guys think that's like not the best way to approach this? Raise your hand. Okay.
I think Ted Cruz used Genesis 12:3. I think a lot of people see that as off-putting when you look at the New Testament.
Why?
Because I think a lot of people, they look especially at the writings of Paul, where he talks about how the new flesh is not the same as the people in the Old Covenant. The new flesh is everybody, is everyone's included.
Talking about Romans 9.
Yes, 9:6, yeah.
Are you Catholic?
Converting to Catholic from Judaism.
I can tell.
This is my next
Oh,
slide.
from Judaism?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you're ethnically Jewish.
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
And you have concerns about AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people that if I criticize AIPAC, I'm anti-Semitic.
I think it's ridiculous, yeah. I feel like it's great to have a concern for your country.
Think about that. The Christian evangelical who built the biggest conservative youth organization in America let his audience question this.
Do you think that that AIPAC represents, again, I'm not saying I believe this, but I think this is what you're saying, that it represents a kind of cutting in line of prioritization away from the American people?
Yes.
Would you guys say that's a fair summary?
100%.
Meaning that, like, okay, we vote, we're citizens, but a separate group gets higher priority because of whatever reasons. You look like you want to.
Of course, I do not think that other countries should be telling us how to spend, telling our representatives and people who are here to represent all of us that they should be focusing outside of the United States. America first. Thank you.
These aren't fringe voices. These are literally the people who built the MAGA movement, but they are now being cast out. And on the other side, you've got Ben Shapiro and an army of influencers and content creators defending Israel like their careers and lives depend on it.
Claims that AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, controls Congress. This claim is frequently made by people who have conspiratorial feelings about shadowy figures influencing the American Congress. It can't be that many Republicans just are pro-Israel. It has to be that Jew money. It's got to be that AIPAC money that's making it happen.
I think it's a calling on all of us to stand up with the relationship that we have with the state of Israel and our Jewish brothers and sisters.
Bibi himself acknowledged that they needed to utilize TikTok.
Okay, we have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are in social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is class. TikTok.
And Trump? Well, he's caught right in the middle. Mega donors like Miriam Adelson are writing $100 million checks demanding loyalty to Israel, but his base is asking, wait, what happened to America first? And when you look at who's funding Trump and what business deals are happening behind the scenes with his family, it starts to make sense. If you want me to do a deep dive on Trump's Israel connection specifically, because trust me, there's a lot more to this story, drop a comment and let me know. I'll make that video next. So, do you see the problem? The Israel First camp is citing biblical verses that many scholars, even conservative theologians, consider heresy. They want American taxpayers to fund a foreign nation based on a religious interpretation that a huge portion of the MAGA coalition doesn't share. And when the America First people push back and say, hey, wait, I thought we were putting America first, they get called anti-Semitic. They get called traitors. They get un-endorsed. Then, the Israel First people will say, but Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East. We have to support them. Okay, let's actually examine that claim, right? Because before this alliance, we didn't have nearly as much conflict in the Middle East. We've been in forever wars for decades now, largely to help Israeli interests. And it's not just about defense. There's something called the Greater Israel Project, which suggests territorial expansion, not just security. So our politicians are weirdly devoted to Israel, even the ones who aren't religious at all, which brings up really uncomfortable questions. Like, is it just theology and alliance, or is there something else going on? Blackmail, bribery, Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. People don't trust the government anymore. They're fed up. They're sick of being told they have to choose between the lesser of two evils and just accept it, right? I actually just experienced this firsthand. Right here in my district in Tennessee, we just had a special election. And my options were option one, a liberal candidate who openly said she hates elements of Nashville culture. She supports taxpayer-funded gender-affirming care for minors, and also said crazy stuff like this.
Recurring dream I've had is standing up in a cafeteria full of women, I don't know why I was there or whatever, and saying, I don't want children, I want power, and just screaming it at the top of my lungs.
Yeah, so someone who clearly doesn't represent me or my values. And then we had option two, a Trump-endorsed MAGA Republican who put support for Israel front and center in his campaign. So what were my actual options? Vote for someone who supports transing kids with my tax dollars, or vote for someone who's going to put Israel first instead of Tennessee first? Where's the America First option? This is the trap so many of us are in right now. We were promised America first. We were told we were going to drain the swamp and put American citizens at the top of the priority list. But now we're stuck choosing between terrible options because questioning whether we should send billions to Israel makes you not really MAGA. And even worse, it makes you anti-Semitic. My neighbors, good people, have an Israeli flag flying next to their American flag outside their house. And you wanna know what's wild? Well, they just replaced the Israeli flag with a fresh new one. But the American flag? It's still tattered and faded. And that tells you everything you need to know about where the priorities are. But here's what's giving me hope. People are waking up. Young conservatives are asking questions they weren't allowed to ask before.
I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza.
So the facade is cracking, clearly. And this split happening right now is not a weakness. It's people finally having the courage to say, wait, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't what we signed up for. And that is exactly what needs to happen. Because real change doesn't come from everyone agreeing. Definitely no. It comes from people being brave enough to ask uncomfortable questions, to challenge the narrative, to demand better options than the lesser of two evils. So here's what I want you to take away from this, okay? You're not crazy for questioning this. You are not anti-Semitic for wanting your tax dollars to help Americans first. And you're not a traitor for asking why a foreign country gets more loyalty from our politicians than we do. You're just paying attention. The establishment wants you to pick a team and just shut up, right? They want you to be a Democrat or a Republican, pro-Israel or anti-Semitic. They want you trapped in their binary choices so you never look up and realize they're playing for the same team, and it's not yours. So if you're feeling confused, frustrated, or demoralized by what's happening right now, good. That means you're thinking for yourself, and that's exactly what scares them. This conversation certainly is not over, it's just beginning. And if you want to understand even more about how deep this MAGA civil war goes, and trust me, we've only kind of scratched the surface, check out this video where I break down the fractures in the conservative movement that led to this. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if this video finally gave you the words to explain what you've been feeling, share it. Send it to someone who's been calling you crazy for asking these questions. Send it to someone who needs to understand why you're so frustrated. The more people having this conversation, the harder it is to ignore. And remember, asking questions isn't anti-Semitic, it's American. Thanks for watching.